All right, then we had the management there, disclosing various important facts. The key really takeaway over there in terms of the debt issue, they're saying that no, there's not going to be any debt that's going to be assumed into this merged entity. So that's a bit of a positive, though if you just take a look at everything else, it's not looking too good. Varinder?
Well, Nigel, today honestly reminds me of a day when we were discussing about Keen Vedanta, okay? And now everyone wants to know what will happen to the stock price. If you're just going by the swap ratio is clearly in favor of Grasim.
Yes.
The calculation shows 12 to 14%, which you alluded earlier as well. So, and today, people were talking about various swap ratios in the market, and hence we saw Aditya Birla Nuvo moving up 4% in the day while Grasim was down. Yeah. So I clearly believe that AB Nuvo will open down tomorrow based on the swap ratio. But one thing is very, very sure that, as I said, we were talking about the same thing when Keen and Vedanta happened. All the positives, if there are any, are already priced in.
Yes.
The stocks have already moved in.
Yes.
If there is any adjustment, any arbitrage, that will happen. But important question is whether you want to buy for a longer term or not. Whether that will be there or not. For Grasim, some of the positives which I can pick from the statements coming from Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, is the new company will have no debt exposure of Idea, which is a good thing. Grasim shareholders will have also some exposure in the financial services. Some of the negative statements for Grasim is that there, of course, will be a wider holding company discount, which will be there. Of course, complex transactions, some of the businesses have no correlation with the Grasim shareholders. And if possible, fundraising in the future, which will be there to support Idea, which will be there. But on the whole, if you're asking about the stock price, AB Nuvo in the red, Grasim may open in the green because of this arbitrage, but clearly, I think institutional investor will not be happy with this.
Varinder, just the arbitrage set aside, but otherwise, I don't think there's much reason to go ahead now and buy Grasim because of this. If you just take a look at it, just pull up Grasim, let's pull up Grasim and let's pull up Ultratech Cement. Both of them should come up for you. The Grasim's price is at around 4,700 or thereabouts. We have Ultratech Cement that was at around 3. If you just value Grasim's stake in Ultratech Cement, and you take a holding discount of around closer on 40 to around 50% approximately, then the total Grasim share price, let's get that up for you. The value of Grasim share, majority of it, closer on 80% comes in from Ultratech Cement. Now, the street used to say, let's go ahead and buy Grasim because you're getting a diversified entity instead of buying Ultratech Cement. Now, I think what the street will do is go back to Ultratech. I want that business. That's a fantastic business. The biggest cement manufacturer giving you good EBITDA per ton, everything looking good. So, I think there's no reason now to go ahead. Yes, the stock has fallen 15% in the last few days, but what are the reasons? I mean, if something like this, it's putting a very sour taste in the mouth. And as we were discussing earlier, it's giving you those memories of Vedanta.
I totally agree with you, And, before I move into something else, I think we have an important guest with us, Rakesh Arora. Rakesh, thank you so much for joining us, independent market expert now. What do you make out of this deal? Your first reaction on this deal after knowing the entire swap ratio and everything about the transaction?
So, Varinder, I think you were right on the dot, saying that Aditya Birla Nuvo appears to be a bigger loser. They were hoping that there would be a demerger of financial businesses and shareholders will get some value, but now it is going to the combined entity. To think of it, it is largely promoter group which benefits out of this whole exercise. They are able to increase their stake in Grasim and vis-a-vis stake into Ultratech, which is one of the best companies out there. For the minority shareholders, really, it doesn't change much from Grasim perspective. It was a holding company. It remains a holding company, and there's little hope that the holding company discount will narrow. I mean, it will be around, 60-70%.
But 60-70%, Rakesh, is huge, okay? Now I think it's trading around 40-45%. If it has to go to 60-70%, that means the stock may slide down, even 20% more from the current levels.
See, Varinder, it was difficult to do research on Grasim, given the fiber business and cement business. Now, if you add telecom, financial services, insurance, I doubt any analyst is there on the street who can actually, make all the ends meet together. So I think there will be a little bit of apathy to this stock, not only from the researching community, but also from the investing community.
Rakesh, if you can just throw more light on Aditya Birla Nuvo, because honestly, I'm interested in knowing more about that. You said that will be a bigger loser in this merger. Can you explain some of the reasons why?
See, the reason I was saying that Aditya Birla Nuvo, if you remember, was a incubation center for all the new businesses for Grasim. Not for Grasim, but rather Aditya Birla Group. And they were building the businesses and, listing them out, so there was value unlocking. Now here also, if it was a straight value unlocking with financial services going out and shareholders getting shares of financial services, Aditya Novo shareholders would have been happy. But instead what they get is a bigger conglomerate, and there are hardly any businesses left now to monetize. Everything has already gone out. So to that extent, Aditya Birla Novo appears to me as a bigger loser. Now since the merger ratio is out there, probably both stocks will, follow in tandem, apart from the minor, arbitrage just there. So I don't really see, these stocks going anywhere except going down.
Rakesh, hi, Prashant also joining in. Now, for Grasim shareholders, I mean, in your interaction in your earlier avatar now, who was really wanting to buy Grasim earlier? Because, I mean, back then also, anybody wanting a cement exposure would buy Ultratech, right? I mean, Grasim is a much older company. Ultratech is not so old. It got created, 2005, 2004, 5 or something. So, but that houses the cement business. So, Grasim shareholders in a way were legacy shareholders from a different era. Would you agree with that? So, yeah, go on.
So, see, you're right. Whoever wanted exposure to cement wanted to buy Ultratech, and Grasim was always a second choice. Still, 70% of earnings are coming from cement, so one would have given a benefit of doubt. And, investors were looking at holding company discount. Whenever it went to, 50, 60%, they would jump onto Grasim stock. But now, there are too many moving parts out there. It's not even a play into, cement company. You have to deal with financial company, you have to deal with idea. So now it becomes even, less worthy
So
of
Rakesh,
investors to even look at here.
Rakesh, it's not good for Grasim. It's not good for Aditya Birla Novo. So according to you, what the management could have been thinking and doing the entire, transaction, what do you think the ulterior motive of the management is? And do you expect further, some restructuring, reorganization of other group companies by, the same management?
So, the only motive which appears to us is the promoter holding into, the holding company has to go up. I think a 25% stake in Grasim was too low. And we were anticipating that at some point in time...
32%, Rakesh, right? 32% in Grasim.
No, it is 25%.
Promoter holding in Grasim.
Yes. It
Okay.
will go to 32 probably after the merger, but it is 25%.
No, the numbers that I have, from 32, it goes up to about 37, 38. But anyway, go on. Essentially, you're saying that promoter stake goes up.
Yeah, so they should have, tried any trick in their bags to increase their stake into Grasim. And we were hoping that they will do it. So, meaning people were earlier hoping that they'll do it through Century Textile,
Yeah.
Kesoram.
Yeah.
And now Aditya Birla Novo has also jumped into this scene. So I think the basic idea is to increase promoter holding. And for them, it doesn't really matter what value the holding company trades at.
Yeah. Just one more point, Rakesh, and this question was put to Mr. Birla at the press conference. My colleague asked that question, whether idea, I mean, this is the way to kind of support idea in the future as well, maybe via a rights issue or something. I mean, and then, Grasim essentially subscribes and infuses money into idea, etc. Financially support idea, because that is a much bigger capital-intensive business requiring regular doses of cash. Would you say that is also possible?
See, once you are a holding company, you can give guarantees, corporate guarantees can be issued. So even without taking the debt, you can help your subsidiary company to raise money. See, it is, in theory, it looks nice that it is a separate company with separate shareholders and it is a limited liability. But, will Aditya Birla allow its company to go down if situation arises? So the question is not whether, they'll fund ideas debt right now, but the onus has come on them now.
Rakesh, sorry to come on to that holding company discount, because I think that's important for Grasim going ahead. As you said, that historically that stock has traded around 40, 50% sometimes, at that holding company discount. After this entire transaction, what do you think that the market will be ascribing the right holding company discount to this, to Grasim or the merged entity?
So my guess is that it should be around 60 to 70%. It was 40 to 60 even without anything, just Ultratech. So I think it will go higher into that range. So I think 60-70% is where it should settle.
The current market cap of Grasim is 42,000 crores. As per the calculation of the non-investment business of both the entities, the value comes around 7,000 crore. So 36,000 crore is the leftover amount, and the value of Ultratech and Idea put together is nearly 70,000 crore. So if we are assuming that it should be around 60% discount, 28,000 crore is the value, then there is a space for Grasim to even fall even after that arbitrage is gone away.
Yeah, see, Varinder, the stocks will be weak. They may not really fall that much immediately. But see, the underlying companies will grow much faster. And then the discount will widen over a period of, months and years to come. So, these stocks are going to underperform materially as compared to the underlying. And that is what we have seen in the last few years also.
Okay, my last question is, did you also mention that AB Nuvo will also be a holding company?
See, AB Nuvo gets merged into Grasim, so it becomes a holding company, right?
Becomes one.
With no other option, of any.
All right, let's cut across. Rakesh, just hold that thought. Let's cut across to Kritika. She's in conversation with the Birla Group.
Take us through the revenues, the EBITDA of the merged entity and the financial services business.
So I think on a merged entity level, will be broadly around close to 60,000 crores revenue and EBITDA of around 12,000 crores. These are the numbers as of March 16, and so these are
the merged entity specifically. Okay.
And what else do you want to?
The financial services business. What would be the revenue, EBITDA, and even if you have the details in terms of the cash flow?
So as Ajay was kind of explaining on financial services business, rather before I get into financial services number, it's important for you to note that the leverage of the merged entity would be very it's going to be very healthy balance sheet for merged balance sheet. On a combined basis, debt to EBITDA would be around 0.5. So that's we are going to have a strong balance sheet on a post merger, which can continue to fuel the future growth of the underlying businesses. And financial services business have before tax around just below 1,000 crores kind of profit.
So, over the last 2 to 3 days, analysts have raised questions about what's in it for Grasim. What's the larger plan for Grasim that you're looking at? Would this not, or what would you tell the shareholders? How will you convince them that this will not reduce value for shareholders?
So it's for Grasim particularly. I think shareholders are getting into growth businesses. That to me is a biggest thing. In the process, they're also getting a listed company shares of one of the fastest growing space, which is financial services. And as I was explaining, the Grasim shareholder who owns 100 shares today, they'll continue to kind of hold 100 shares. They'll also get 700 shares of financial services. To me, is a big benefit to the shareholders of the Grasim.
I understand that point, but help us understand the structure that you will create. Because the fact of the matter is, Mr. Agarwal, that these are non-core areas. Grasim has been very focused on core businesses. Would this not, to an extent, dilute your core strengths?
May not be the way you are saying. In fact, from our point of view, there are complementary business which is coming in, kind of getting merged with Grasim.
For instance, which would be the complementary businesses that you would be able to create some synergies in?
So maybe just to explain, textile, chemical, we run VSF, we are getting VFI. So all these businesses are kind of a complementary business in some form. And for the Grasim shareholders, what we are getting is a growth business. And financial services, as we know, given the demographic of the country and given our positioning, ours is a largest non-bank financial services play. We have presence in 12 different line of business activities, and we have a leading position in each of those businesses where we have a presence. So that will be helpful for the Grasim shareholders.
Okay, post the merger is completed, could you take us through what would be the overall promoter shareholding and what would be the promoter shareholding in the financial services business as well?
Yeah, first at a Grasim level, promoter would own around 39% of shares. Remaining shares will be with the public. And at a financial services company level, Grasim will own around 57%. Public will own around 26%, and promoter will own around 16.5%. That's the ownership.
Okay. So once the merger is completed, how much more would you look at investing into Grasim to be able to, you spoke about how there is a growth roadmap that you're pointing out, but how much more funding would be required? Would you look at raising funds through a specific route? I mean, you have spoken about it, but if you could give me details, what routes are you looking at?
No, broadly, if you look at, we'll have a combined EBITDA of around close to 3,000 crore rupees. So it would be a strong cash generating business at a standalone level. So I'm sure at this stage we don't believe that we are actually looking for any specific fundraise because the cash flow itself is very, very strong.
How much is the consolidated cash flow for the merged entity then?
It's a little difficult to kind of answer. But if you go back and look at March 16 number and maybe first quarter results which we just announced for both the companies, I think on an annualized basis, if we just kind of annualize those numbers, it on a cash itself would be post a normal capex and post tax, it should be around 1,500 crores kind of.
Okay. I'm going to get your final comments on a concern that analysts have raised with respect to how, this is being done to simplify the structure, yes, but even now, after the two companies are merged, the structure is still complex. Do you not believe, would there be a possibility of further making it more simplified going forward, or is this the end of the road?
So, this is an ongoing exercise, first of all. From our point of view, this is a simplified structure. We have got the listed financial services to the both sets of shareholder for Grasim as well as for Nuvo, and we have got the growth businesses for Grasim shareholders with a strong balance sheet and giving India play for all the shareholders.
Okay. Quick question and a clarification rather. What would be the name of the merged entity? Would there be a rebranding exercise that would be required?
At this stage, I don't have any specific name, but Grasim is what we are going to call.
You're going to call the merged entity Grasim. So AB Novo, that brand will be removed altogether?
So in a restructuring exercise and a merger, I think once Nuvo merge into Grasim, so Grasim will remain a surviving entity.
So many thanks for speaking to CNBC-TV18. Pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, then we'll wait by, in fact, if Kritika and Tanisha and the team can get more sponsors coming in from the Birla Group. But as things stand, it appears that tomorrow both the stocks will be under pressure, both Grasim as well as AB Novo. Yes, the ratio is favouring Grasim, but I think that's probably one of the only... it's favouring... yeah, there's an arbitrage of around 14%. So,
yeah.
So that's basically what's going to happen. So, any further closing comments?
As you rightly said, tomorrow the stocks will move on the swap ratio, and as you rightly pointed for the first time that Grasim will open higher, AB Novo will open down. It will be volatile because of the huge position buildup which has happened in both the stocks. But the important point is, whether institutions are happy or not. You were mentioning about Grasim, no one will come and buy at this price, or no one will be thinking of getting into the stock for a long term after this arbitrage is settled, and this will not settle in a single day. It will take at least 6-9 months to settle and move away that 14% arbitrage. Yeah. But there is complex structure, idea coming in, financial services coming in. We have no idea how much holding company discount will prevail in. People are mentioning, as Rakesh mentioned, that it could be 60-70% also going ahead. Yeah. So that is the point for Grasim. For AB Novo, clearly, the demerged entity, the financial services business, will be an important business to watch out for. But since the stock has already moved up, and has moved up tremendously, I will want to see whether it will be seller news kind of stuff which happened when Kane and Vedanta happened.
That's right. Varinder, just a quick point that I wanted to make. Ultratech did a deal with the JP Group, right? So what that meant was for the next couple of years on UltraTech Cement, you'll see no EPS growth, right? We had the management on the channel as well. They said there's going to be no EPS growth whatsoever on UltraTech Cement. So just referring to a few notes, what brokerages suggested was that maybe in fact if you want to play UltraTech, you could play it via Grasim. Give you a couple of points on that because the chemicals business, the VSF business as well, if you take a look at the margins in the last couple of years, it's improved from the meager single digits to around double digits. So in case you want to play UltraTech Cement, in case you're factoring in that there's not going to be any EPS growth, that's why you are playing Grasim. Now with this particular deal, that goes out of the window. Prashant, you want to comment on that?
You know, I'm just stepping back and slightly, if you look at, I mean, Mr. Birla and this is deal making. I mean, frenzied level of deal making. Go back all the way, 15 years when 2001, when they bought the 10% stake from Reliance. I mean, actually, 2003 they bought out L&T cement business. Then there's Hindalco's buyout of Novelis. I'm just, this is an internal deal, internal deal making. But it just kind of shows you what a prolific kind of deals team they have out there at Birla, led of course by Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla himself. So I'm just kind of stepping back and looking at it from a slightly bigger perspective. But the point I think to focus on is look at all their businesses, right? Cement, mining, telecom, right? Power.
Yeah.
The one business which is really growing is financial services, which is actually growing at 20, 25, 30%. It requires capital, but not as much capital as some of the other areas. And it has been doing extremely well. So I think the point that I made right at the beginning, this is essentially, and I think Mr. Birla also said it, I feel, and I think he said it, I feel the business has reached a scale where it deserves to actually be separated and housed in a separate entity. I think that is basically the point of this entire structure. Many other things will happen as well, which is as Rakesh also said, the holding company can support operating asset like Idea in other different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be direct cash infusion. It could be a group guarantees, etc. as well. But those are, is that the aim of this deal? I doubt it. I think the aim is to essentially, I think Mr. Birla thinks the financial services entity is not being fully valued, is not being valued as it should be. And, this deal is essentially aimed to kind of get that value out. I think we have Mr. Ajay Srinivasan with us, joining us right now on the location. And let's just toss across, I think my colleague is going to start asking questions to Mr. Srinivasan.
One of the reasons Mr. Birla mentioned for this merger at this time was that financial services is growing at a fast pace and you want Grasim shareholders to be part of that fast pace. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Why are we going through such a fast pace now in financial services?
No, actually the business has been growing over the last several years. I think we've had reasonable growth. Like I mentioned earlier, we're actually a fairly unique financial services business. We have a large number of businesses. We have 12 or 13 businesses underneath. And in each business, we've built scale. And I don't think there's another business like that really available in the market. So we felt that this is a good time to actually look to unlock value and give a broader base of investors the ability to benefit from that.
If I understand correctly, some funds will be used towards financial services and scaling that up. What verticals in particular would receive the benefit of this?
So largely the verticals that require funding in our current network are the NBFC, the housing finance company. Both of these require funding, and our health insurance business.
So these are the three verticals that you'll be looking to scale up. Yes. Okay, so and you said no listing plans for any of the separate verticals. Could that change in the time that the merger is complete, by the time next year happens?
No, I don't think it's going to change in that time frame at all.
All right, then rather unfortunate that we have Grasim's numbers that are coming in there, and prima facie they look quite good. There's a beat on the margins. It's looking quite good. If you look at the profitability as well, it's come way ahead of what we were estimating, but that's all going to count for very little tomorrow. What's going to be in focus is this entire rejig. What's it, Varinder?
Well, we mentioned it again and again, and I expect AB Nuvo to open down, Grasim to open up, a small adjustment. But again, I will not be surprised if Grasim, is off from day's high tomorrow in the morning, because people want reasons to believe that why they want to buy Grasim. It's a complex structure. There will not be a major impetus for someone to buy Grasim. Aditya Birla Financial Services will be one company at a right price, which people will want to look at going ahead. But as I said, at a right price, because the stock has already moved, 70-80% in the last few months, So wait for tomorrow, expect red on AB Nuvo.
All right, I think the board approves a stock split in the ratio of around 1:5. I think that's another detail that was coming in there. So I think that is just an added detail that's coming. But we've gone on for a goodish bit, so we'll just wrap up on the special coverage of the AB Group mega restructuring. News and updates will continue.